first and foremost, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I think we're going to have quite a really great hour. My name is Joni Klopp. I'm very fortunate to be one of the moderators this evening. I work in the Office of Admissions. I'm a very proud Golden Bear alumni, so I'm extra excited to see this event happening, not only at the place where I work, but also the place where I earned my degree. One of the reasons that I was asked to help moderate this event is some of you may be familiar with the march that we had this past June in Kutztown for solidarity and for Black Lives Matter. So we were planning just a few hundred. We ended up with over 1,000. I'm sure some of you were in that crowd. So I'm very, very excited for tonight. I will turn it over to my co-moderator, Imani.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank everyone for being here as well. My name is Imani. I am one of the GAs inside the MCC. And without further ado, I will start the introduction. This is a reminder that no unauthorized video or audio recordings are permitted. And please ensure that all cell phones are on silent out of respect for everyone in the audience. Artist, organizer, educator, and popular public speaker, Patrisse Cullors is a Los Angeles native and co-founder of the Black Lives Matter Global Network and founder of grassroots Los Angeles-based organization Dignity and Power Now. She's also the faculty director at Arizona's Prescott College of a new social and environmental arts practice, MFA, program that she developed. Cullors' work for Black Lives Matter recently received recognition in Times Magazine's 2020 100 Women of the Year project. For the past 20 years, Cullors has been on the front line of criminal justice reforms and led Reform LA Jails, Yes on Our campaign, a ballot initiative that passed by a 71% landslide victory in March of 2020. In 2013, Patrisse co-founded the global movement with the viral Twitter hashtag Black Lives Matter, which has since grown to be an international organization with dozens of chapters around the world fighting anti-Black racism. In January of 2016, Patrisse Cullors published her memoir, When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir. Her memoir became an instant New York Times bestseller, and she has recently published a younger adult edition of her memoir, which was published in September of 2020. Patrisse has been honored with various awards, including the 2020 Dolphy Stanton Fellowship, the 2019 Champion for Peace and Justice from the Trayvon Martin Foundation, the Next Generation Award 2018 from ACLU National, the Sydney Peace Prize Award in 2017, Black Woman of the Year Award 2015 from the National Congress of Black Women, Civil Rights Leader for the 21st Century Award 2015 from Los Angeles Times, Community Change Agent Award 2016 from Black Girls Rock Incorporated, Women of the Year Award for Justice Seeker Award 2016 from Glamour, and Essence First Ever Woke Award. Patrisse holds her MFA from USC Roski School of Art and Design. Please join me in welcoming Patrisse Cullors to our campus.
Thank you so much, everybody. It's such an honor to be here. And I am so sad that we can't be in person, but I'm very grateful that we are all being safe in this time. And especially as so many people across the country are impacted by COVID-19. And I think, more importantly, recognizing that so much of this crisis has to do with racism, capitalism, and the government's inability over the last 4 years, especially in the time of COVID, to appropriately respond to the needs of our community. With that, I'm grateful to be in conversation today about Black Lives Matter, the work that we've done. I'm grateful to be in conversation about our next steps, where we're going, and grateful to continue to be a part of a long legacy of civil rights and human rights leaders who have challenged the US government to ensure Black people's freedom. One thing that's important for this team to understand is that Black Lives Matter was never just about Black Americans, that our call to action was always about a global Black audience. And we're seeing that with the Nobel Peace Prize nomination that our movement has received. And that nomination is because millions of people around the globe decided that they were going to show up and stand up against repressive governments, especially police departments who often are ensuring those repressive governments criminalize protests. So I'm proud to be here, proud to be a part of this longstanding legacy, and excited to be a part of this moderated conversation.
Well, thank you. We're going to jump right into a few of these questions. I know you mentioned us being safe. If there's one event we really wish we could have you here, obviously, but it's better for all of us to be safe. So let's hop right in. The first question that we have is, you discussed it a little bit, but there are many people here today, some who may be familiar with the Black Lives Matter, but not necessarily familiar with your story and your work. Would you share a bit about your work and why you felt it was so important to write your memoir?
Absolutely. You know, I really wrote the memoir as a challenge to many of the Republicans who ended up becoming part of Donald Trump's administration. Their challenge to us calling us terrorists. For years, I had spent time and my life in my neighborhood and my community where I saw what terrorism was, and that was LAPD and the Sheriff's Department, not just harassing the people in my neighborhood and community, but terrorizing us. There wasn't a moment in my life where police presence didn't exist. And some would call it a community that's occupied and under occupation. And so the work that we've done and the work that I do inside of Black Lives Matter really does come out of my own personal experience as a young person witnessing my brothers being lined up by the police when they were children, my home being raided as a 4-year-old. I remember that raid very vividly, and the raids after. And then, you know, in 2016, when our movement was called a terrorist organization, and when we were called terrorists, I knew that it was time to write the book. And so I went to Asha Bandele, who is a prolific writer, to help me author this memoir. And I'm so glad I did it, because it was really an intervention. It was a lot to obviously share so much personal, so many of my personal experiences. But I felt like it was necessary to get people on track, to remind them of who we truly are and what our movement has always been about.
Thank you for that. The next question is, what have you seen from young people that make you hopeful about the movement? What role do they play in activist work when it comes to social justice, especially as it relates to the Black community?
Yeah, I love that question. I want to lift up a young person out of San Luis Obispo County, which is here in California. Much of that county is one of the last Republican, white, right-wing counties in California. And Tiana Arata is one of the people amongst many young people who are facing conviction and charges for protesting on behalf of Black people in SLO and across the country. She was a leader in the George Floyd protests, and she was powerful, and the police and the DA are scared of her. And I've been helping assist their team in pushing back against the DA's charges. At first, Tiana was facing multiple felony charges. We fought and did a huge campaign, and now she's facing multiple misdemeanor charges. Her legal team has been incredible and has been in lockstep with our movement. They want Dan Dow, who is the district attorney in San Luis Obispo, to no longer work on that case. So we led a full-on campaign to get him off the case. A judge said, yes, you're right. He should be on the case. He is intentionally discriminating against her because of her political views, and kicked it over to the California's Attorney General office. And so we are winning, and young people are leading, and it's just beautiful. It's so beautiful to see young people lead in the way they do in this moment. I remember being a young activist, and I remember what it meant to have older activists sort of have my hand and have my back and have my support. And so young activists and young organizers are so critical to our movement. It's the way we're able to continue to make the change that's so necessary.
I think that definitely hit home for a lot of our students. So thank you for that. Jumping in for the next one, as African Americans, African American leaders and activists within your home, in your local communities, within corporate organizations, where do you think we still have to grow to be more inclusive and more effective?
I love that question. I mean, I've already read all your questions, and just so you all know, I love all the questions. So I'm going to keep saying that. But something that feels very important is that I think as Black leaders, one of the places that I want to give us a little bit of a nudge and a challenge is our relationship to the conversation around immigration. I think there's been a really important, I think this is a really important opportunity to remind Black Americans in particular, and you all will notice that I don't use the term African American, but that Black American leaders in particular need to remember that Black people are also immigrants, and that there are Black immigrants that deserve justice, and that many of the Black people who are criminalized are often Black immigrants, often Black undocumented immigrants in particular. Everybody sort of knows the famous story by now of 21 Savage getting picked up by ICE. Nobody except for his family knew he was undocumented, not even his team. I worked on helping him get out of ICE custody and leading a campaign that lifted up the conversation about Black immigrants. That moment of 21 Savage's arrest really did amplify for Black people, Black Americans in particular, how vulnerable Black undocumented people are. And so I think a lot of our work is around challenging our own understanding of intersectionality inside of our community.
That was a great answer. Thank you. Next question is, what do you see as the biggest BLM success in the past year? Conversely, what has been the biggest challenge?
Biggest success. Like, how do I understand, I guess the question is, to answer that question is, how do we define success? The movement has received tons of accolades and awards and a lot of praise in this last year. And that is one form of success, right? Recognition. But I think a movement is successful when they're able to change the material conditions for the people that they're fighting for. And I say that because what I would hate to see, and what I would hate for young people to think success is in our movement, is accolades, awards, acknowledgement. Because for years, this work was not acknowledged. There were no accolades. People didn't want to talk about police violence. People weren't interested in learning about the families of victims of police terror, that was not a news story. Nobody cared about holding the police accountable. In fact, outside of the Black community, many people believe the police. They believe, well, why would they do that? That person must have done something. The police aren't just killing people. And it isn't until these last 7.5 years where people have said, or Black people and the country are finally noticing, because unfortunately, Black people have had to share all these videos of our death on camera, on social media, where people are like, oh, you can't deny that anymore. So I think the success really comes with how we are helping and transforming people's lives. Are people able to have employment? Are they able to have access to healthcare, food? Is our movement getting us closer to that? Those are the kind of markers of success that I look at. And to answer what's our biggest success, I think it was the movement to move money out of large police bloated budgets and move those dollars into access to resources. Austin, Texas, right now, there are people protesting Austin moving homeless people into hotels. We all talk about the homeless crisis, but the moment there's a solution for it, people want to challenge it. And so, Austin got that money from the bloated police budget. They actually implemented the defund the police. They took money out of the police budget and they put it towards housing for homeless people. That to me is success. You asked me another part of that question, but I went on a whole tangent about success and what is success, so I don't remember it.
The second part of the question was, what has been the biggest challenge?
The biggest success has also been our biggest challenge. We got a lot of feedback from the Democratic Party in particular about choosing the word defund. We got a lot of feedback about the defund movement, feedback that was often unhelpful, feedback that really made it clear that folks were misrepresenting what our movement was calling for. I think it's important to understand that budgets are a marker in which we understand how a community is redistributing money and resources. If you look at your city, county, state, and national budget, and most of its money is going towards police and the military, and yet we have a housing crisis, and yet we have an unemployment crisis, and yet we have a healthcare crisis, then the logical next step is to decrease money for police and military, defense and punishment, and increase money for care and dignity. I talk about this a lot, which is we live in an economy of punishment versus an economy of care. And so the biggest challenge has been reminding people, and the Democratic Party in particular, that the defund movement is a movement that is about care and dignity. And that should be what policymakers are thinking about first when they're creating policy and they're creating budgets.
Thank you. And going along with that question, what support do you need from people who aren't as visible and targeted as you? What are the best ways we can be co-conspirators?
Lifting up the demands that come out of the movement directly. That's how people can show up. Asking questions. For people who, choose to use social media, go to your social media audience and say, there's a lot of talk about the defund movement. But do you know what it is? Do you understand what it is? Do you know what your city or county budget is? Talk to your family members. A ton of people during this racial reckoning had to talk, white people in particular, but some Black and brown folks too had to talk to their family members around why they chose to vote for Trump or why they were supporting Trump. And so this becomes a really important opportunity to dig into these hard conversations that I think social media has really flattened. I'm not a big fan of going to social media to air my grievances. I don't think it's a place where you can have constructive feedback and criticism. I'm much more interested in bringing us together to have the hard and challenging conversations, one-on-ones, group conversations. Obviously, right now we can't, gather in the same ways, but getting on a Zoom call, hopping on a conversation. Someone subtweeted about me and BLM the other day, and I just texted them. I said, hey, I saw your tweet. You want to talk about it? I don't know why we choose to use social media as our way to air out our grievances with each other and our politics, when we can, oftentimes we know the person we need to talk to directly. So I think that's really important.
Thank you for that. I think there's a lot of importance. We hear a lot about those difficult conversations, and that's exactly what you're trying to hit home. So thank you for that. The next question I have is you can kind of answer it in a few different ways, but what does it mean to trust Black women right now?
Oh, I love that. I love when this trust Black women and protect Black women. I'll say trust Black women that have good politics, because why would we trust Omarosa? That's not a Black woman we should be trusting. But I would add that trust Black women that have good politics. I think a lot about Stacey Abrams and the work that she's done. I think a lot about all the Black women, LaTosha Brown from Black Voters Matter, my sisters who co-founded BLM with me, Jessica Bird, who's this brilliant political strategist, Mary Hooks, Charlene Carruthers, so many Black women who have created the infrastructure for this new iteration of this movement, who created the understanding and the clarity and the boldness around what was needed and necessary for this movement, and for our work at large. And so, yeah, I think Trust Black Women really comes out of a necessity to stop denying the brilliance of Black women, and stop stifling and undermining Black women. And that is going to be hard for institutions to do. It's going to be hard for other people to do. But we've seen that when we value the leadership of Black women, when we trust Black women, we get closer to freedom.
You consistently shout people out and lift folks up. So who are you listening to and reading right now?
I usually have my list of books, but my mom took them all off my table because she was like, where are we going to eat dinner? But I'm listening to, obviously I know that the whole world's shouting out Stacey Abrams, but I think it's so important too. I'm pretty sure I know because I didn't know about Stacey Abrams before she ran for governor, but I'm pretty sure that she's honestly been, one of our most brilliant leaders for years, and she's finally getting recognition for her brilliance. I don't know if people want to know that Stacey Abrams is also an author of romance novels on her free time while she's slaying white supremacists. She is also slaying romance novels. And I want to lift up LaTosha Brown, a sister out of Alabama who is started Black Voters Matter. And I remember her coming to me and asking if she can use that phrase to start Black Voters Matter. And she got the blessing from us to do that. And it's been incredible to see her work and just love on her brilliance. I also want to lift up Melina Abdullah, a local chapter leader here in Los Angeles, who has just been an incredible force of nature for the Los Angeles Black Lives Matter chapter and the work here. The BLM LA chapter, alongside other organizations, really brought down our former DA Jackie Lacey, who was a Black woman. Once again, don't trust DA Jackie Lacey, trust Black women with good politics. She really, came into office and bamboozled us. And she became, even more law and order than we thought she was going to be. And Black Lives Matter Los Angeles got her out of office. And I have to thank their team for the work that they've done. What am I reading right now? I just finished reading. I was in the middle of reading a book. I'm like, let me look for it. Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes, and their relationship, which I had no idea they had a relationship, but they had like a tumultuous, powerful, magnetic back and forth. And so I read a book about them, and it was just really beautiful to take a page in history and kind of learn how folks were thinking about themselves in such an important time like the Harlem Renaissance.
Thank you. You provided us with a lot of resources that we can go back and look into. The next question is, tell us about your vision. What did you hope to accomplish when you co-founded BLM? And how close are you to realizing your vision? What keeps you inspired, hopeful on the journey?
I'm an abolitionist. And I've been an abolitionist for little less than half my life now. Abolition, just the word itself is about abolishing, to completely get rid of a system. When I say I'm an abolitionist, I mean I don't believe in prisons and jails, courts and surveillance as a form of accountability. I actually think it is counter to accountability. I believe that we need to live and strive for an economy of care in which when and if people cause harm and violence, we are actually ensuring that that individual won't cause harm and violence again. And we are transforming the place and the systems that they came from that allowed them to and promoted and perpetuated violence. So much of my inspiration comes from other abolitionists and the work of abolition and the years of abolition. We sort of understand abolition more popularly from the abolition of slavery. And obviously, I think one of the primary people think of is Harriet Tubman. But abolition is a really profound study, and critical resistance is one of the first orgs to reorient us around prison abolition in particular. And obviously, Angela Davis, who's a friend and a mentor of mine, was one of the first persons to coin the term prison abolitionist and redefine and reorient a generation to be abolitionists. And so that is a journey that I am consistently on. Every organization that I've started is an abolitionist organization that's looking forward and ending the prison industrial complex as we know it. And my next book is going to be on abolition and how we can practice abolition on a daily basis, not just to abolish the systems that exist, but also how do we retrain and unlearn what we've been taught because of the culture of revenge and punishment. We're taught that revenge and punishment is how you hold people accountable. We're taught revenge and punishment is necessary for accountability. And so the work that I'm doing, the work that I'm interested in, is a new formation of how we understand trust, accountability, care. I believe it'll make our movements better and our institutions better if we practice abolition on a daily basis with each other, as well as practicing how to abolish the systems.
Thank you. Our next question that we have prepared is that you've identified as being out and as queer since high school. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience growing up and coming out? Culturally, what did it mean to be queer within the Black community? And did you find yourself singled out as a result of your public queer identity?
Sure. I came out when I was 15 years old to my cousin, and my cousin was already out. She sort of paved the way for a bunch of us. We all went to school together. And I feel like coming out was a really important moment for me. It really solidified parts of me that I felt were being muted. And I think coming out at a younger age also offered me the opportunity to learn about queer politics, and learn about other queer folks and do my own digging around Black queer people in particular. Being queer definitely singled me out. There's several times, early on in our movement, pre-BLM, where I was in Black spaces in particular, and I would ask about, queerness and feminism, and it would also always be told to me, well, let's deal with race first, so the lack of intersectionality in spaces that were hard. There's a ton of, unfortunately, on the internet and social media, hatred towards me and BLM in particular, because we are out and queer and proud, and a ton of backlash from that. But even with that, I feel like our queerness and our just sort of like unapologetic queerness has allowed for us to support a new generation of Black queer young people in particular.
Thank you. The next question is, intersectionality is often at the forefront for the LGBTQ plus conversation. As a community cuts across all race and genders, how do you think the LGBTQ plus community has embraced intersectionality? And where do you think we still need to do better champions for all marginalized communities?
Sure. I think that queer folks, in particular, queer Black and brown folks, queer and trans Black and brown folks, have been at the forefront of positioning intersectionality as the way towards our freedom. That has always been super powerful for me to step into the conversation around intersectionality from a place of my own identity. And I've seen some of the best conversations around intersectionality happen inside of queer Black and brown spaces. I think that, there's a long way to go for all of our communities to understand what queerness is and it's the role that it has played historically in the fight for freedom for most people. I think that, I think a lot about the work of Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, and so many Black trans and brown trans women who set the foundation for our queer movement, and are often, their stories aren't told, their histories aren't told. And so, I think there's a lot of work that our movements have to do, but I'm really proud of where we're at.
So especially in the last couple years, we're hearing a lot about advocacy and a lot about allyship. So as kind of the expert, as the community organizer, where do you see allyship and advocacy going awry, and how can everyone be a better ally? How do we make sure that this process isn't siloed? And how do you think about lending your privilege to others?
That's many questions in one. So I'm going to start backwards. How do I think about lending my privilege to others? When we first started Black Lives Matter, one of the first things that we did was reminding the world that all Black lives matter. And so this conversation around Black undocumented people, Black trans folks, Black folks who have convictions on their record, Black people who are incarcerated, Black people with disabilities, both physical and mental. Black people who are Black women, cis women, and that the work that we do has to be intersectional, because here's how this goes. When the most marginalized of our communities get free, we all get free. If you think about how affirmative action played out, and if I were with you all in person, I would ask this question out loud and then I would have you raise your hand. But do you know that when affirmative action was in place, who it actually supported the most? Affirmative action supported the people who got the most from affirmative action were white women. And so when we open up the space and create more room for our most marginalized communities, we actually are creating more room for all of us. Folks with privilege, white folks, men, cis people, we have it all wrong. We often think, well, if we're working on that issue, what about us? It's why something like January 6th happens, right? They have it all wrong. They don't understand that when actually Black people get free, Black poor people, we're opening up more room for white poor folks. Although, let's be clear, lots of those folks were business people, CEOs, cops. They weren't all white poor folks that stormed the Capitol. So we have to understand that the way this works, when we leverage our privilege, when I leverage my privilege as a cis woman, as someone with a blue passport, someone who was born here, we actually open up the doors for all of us. We create more room for all of us. How to be a better ally, or how to be an active ally in advocacy. The word advocate always makes me cringe a little bit. I don't want someone advocating on my behalf. I want someone organizing to help me build my power. It's why I don't call myself an advocate. I call myself a community organizer. I help organize people to build their power. I once was a young Black girl raised poor that was that witnessed my community being criminalized. I was 16 years old. I met organizers. They helped build my power and my community's power. That is the work we should be doing. We should be organizing to build the power of people most marginalized so they can then figure out the solutions. Oftentimes, the people who are most marginalized, we know what we need. We know the solutions to our pain. And so we should be the ones leading that. I don't need an advocate advocating on my behalf. Unless I ask them to, unless I ask someone to, then yes. I advocate on the behalf of people who are incarcerated, who don't have the ability to sit and have a meeting with the DA. Yes, then I'm advocating. That's something that's been asked of me. But we don't do that unless it's been asked of you. And I think, with allyship, I actually have a YouTube video specifically on allyship, which is, I don't care what we call it. You can call it co-conspirator, ally. Most importantly, what we need allies to do, and what people who can be allies should be doing, is listening to the people they're supposed to be in allyship with. An ally doesn't then go tell people they're supposed to be in allyship with what they should be doing or how they should be doing it. That's not true allyship. So what we need is folks to listen and then take action. And I said this in an earlier meeting with a small group of folks. We need people who are in power, who are in a position of power and privilege, to be willing to step away from that power or to share that power.
Thank you. We've had a number of questions, not surprisingly, come through this Q&A. Would you mind if we jumped into a couple of those, since we're closing in on the end here?
I don't mind.
Thank you.
So the first question came from Christine. She asks, what do you think can be accomplished with the new Biden administration in regards to moving the needle on racism in this country? And what are your views on the calls for unity? Is that a realistic goal?
Well, a lot of us said this, but no unity without accountability. And I saw that AOC, Rep AOC went back online to, really look at, really tell the story of her own, the impact of what the Capitol riots had on her own psyche and trauma, the trauma she's experienced from being a survivor. And we still haven't seen accountability. Much of those people, unfortunately, are going to get away with this. And so I think it's important that we understand that we cannot unite without accountability. And I think, these executive orders that the Biden administration has moved on, really important for people who are listening in today to study those executive orders. Those executive orders are really powerful, and they come from long, hard work from movement and organizers. There's still a ton of work this administration needs and must do around issues of policing and incarceration. And we're hoping that this administration will, truly be accountable to us around that. I think there is a lot of space and room. It's only, we're in the first 100 days. We have 4 years within this administration, and our movement has 4 years to push this administration to do what we believe they must do to get us not back on track, because we've never been on track, but to get us on track to move towards challenging racism and healing this country from hundreds of years of devastation.
So our next question comes from James. Do you believe that we can do more to promote Black joy, and can this help aid in the fight against white supremacy?
I love that question. Yes, Black joy is necessary. Black joy is necessary and important, and we need to definitely prioritize it. I think Black joy is less about white supremacy, though. Black joy is about our joy. Maybe it'll challenge white supremacy, sure. But when I think about Black joy, Black rest, Black laughter, Black play, I'm not thinking about white people. I'm more thinking about how we as Black people can stay connected to ourselves and be in relationship to ourselves and not have to focus on white supremacy and whiteness so much.
Thank you. And then Leah asks, please talk about your sense of the role of art in radical political movement, and your art in particular.
Sorry, one more time.
Leah asks, please talk about your sense of the role of art in radical political movements, and your art in particular.
So I teach a whole class on art and social practice, and I am, big fans of so many artists out in the world who are doing brilliant work for their communities. I think a lot about Lauren Halsey out of South Central LA, or Emery Douglas out of Oakland, Tanya Brugueria out of Cuba, Alfadir out of Mexico. So many brilliant artists around the world who are just like leading with their art. Rafa Esparza out of East LA, Star Montana, out of Boyle Heights. And their work is a work that really challenges the white art world and really challenges the sort of gallery museum circuit. While a lot of them are, lifted up in that circuit, they are really also challenging that circuit. Their work is often escaping criticism of those institutions. My work is a work that I actually have a work that I'm launching in a couple days. First work that I direct and produced on my own. It's a visual project that is looking at the impact the impact that COVID is happening, the impact COVID has on our communities in Los Angeles. And, you know, I'm really thinking about like how we can be in meditation and prayer collectively in this moment, how we could show up and heal and work inside of a healing methodology in this moment. And so my work is looking at trauma and resilience, often in Black communities, and looking at the impact it has on us and how we can heal and meditate.
Because of the number of students that we have on this call, I think this is a very, it's a perfect question for this group, and we discussed it a little bit in the previous session. The question is, what advice do you have for activists on university campuses who want to fight to ensure racial equity to all students?
One more time, because these are new questions, so I'm like, I need to soak it in.
Absolutely. What advice do you have for activists on university campuses who want to fight and ensure racial equity to all students?
I want to fight and ensure racial equity for all students. And what was the first part of that for activists?
Yes. What advice do you have for activists on university campuses?
It's hard. I feel bad for y'all. Universities, especially PWIs, are their own bastion of white supremacy. There's, you know, they're often sort of like locked in to their bureaucracy and what they're wanting to do. This is not to demoralize the person who asked the question. It's just to remind you that each environment comes with its own issues. And activists, I think, very early on need to be teaming up with each other. The more people are working together, the better. The more that you have a shared agenda, the better. This is for, you know, doing activism anywhere, but specifically on a campus. And I will say that when you are able to make that change at a campus level, you are able to change a lot. You're able to change and set a precedent, not just inside of that university, but for other spaces and places as well.
Thank you. Curtis asks, can you speak on the negative impacts that racism have on mental health of Black people?
Sure. Terrible. Yeah, I'm wondering if this person wants like data, but I'll say that finally we are hearing from different governmental agencies, public agencies, private agencies that racism is a public health crisis, and that the impact racism has on communities of color and Black people in particular really does impact our mental health. When you're being raised to fear for your life, to fear that you won't be able to survive another day, to fear that the agencies that are supposedly supposed to protect you are actually intentionally harming and killing your community, that has a severe impact on your mental health. There's not a day that goes by as I raise my small child that I'm not thinking about, is this going to be a safe place to raise him as he gets older? When is going to be the first time he realizes discrimination and racism? That's something that I shouldn't have to be worried about as a parent. And yet I am, and I know that he's going to experience it at some point. And so, yes, there are grave mental health challenges that come with the impacts of racism on our communities.
And the next question we have, which I like, this is a very tangible and actionable that our students and our people on the call can take from this. How do you address someone when they say all lives matter in response to this movement? What is your response, and how do you have a conversation with those people?
I don't anymore. I've been doing it for 7 years. I stopped last year. If someone's still saying all lives matter, then they're not interested in the movement at all. At this point, the movement has saturated every corporation, every organization, every country. That means that they are actively opposing Black Lives Matter. So I don't respond any longer. I'll tell you what I used to say, which is, I used to remind people that, sure, actually we believe all lives matter. But until Black Lives Matter, all lives won't matter.
Thank you. And I think we have time for about one more question. Jenna asks, is it hard to stay hopeful as an activist? How do you deal with feelings of powerlessness and hopelessness?
Oh, such a great question. I try not to spend a lot of time on hopelessness. I try to ground myself in my ancestors and communities before us who have also fought really hard fights. And I have seen how those hard fights have created change. And so, yeah, of course, I become hopeless sometimes. Like, that is for sure. I'm a human being. But the hopelessness is often met with a reminder that so many other people have done this before, and that I'm just a part of that legacy. I'm not alone. You are not alone. We are not alone in our fight for justice. We never have been. Sometimes we'll be a small chorus. I remember that. I remember when it was a small chorus of us. And then there are moments in history where more people realize, oh shit, this is happening. We have to support that small chorus, and people join the choir and people come together en masse. We are in one of those moments. It won't last forever, but we're in this moment now. We have to take advantage of it. And so history always gives me hope.
Well, I think I can speak for everyone on this call. I'm ready to get out there and get back to doing the work and having these conversations. I know, I think I can speak for many of us on this call, at least the people on the screen, that I'm motivated. I'm ready to get back out there and really start putting these things to action. And we just can't thank you enough for your time with us this afternoon, Patrisse. It has been such an honor to chat with you, especially since the most recent accolades with Black Lives Matter being nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. So congratulations again. But on behalf of myself, Imani, the Multicultural Center, everyone here at Little Kutztown University in snowy Pennsylvania, thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been an incredible afternoon for us.
Oh, thank you so much. And when the world opens up safely again, I can't wait to see you all in person.
We'd love to have you here. We'll show you around very soon, hopefully.
All right, talk soon.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye.